playoff chances?
I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on Ohio State's playoff chances. I think other teams, because Ohio State has looked so dominant, and I think they will continue to do that in the games played, I think that they're still going to have a chance. I think it's for the outliers and the teams that the committee's not really sure on. I think that's where this season takes the hits. But I want to encourage the committee and all of the different conferences, the commissioners, that this is a year of adjustments. This is a year where we have to be willing to adjust. Listen, y'all know that I love the tradition of college football. But if there's a year to change, to adapt, to grow, to be able to figure out something that works best for these student athletes, this is that year. And so I want to see people continue to adjust, to work. Listen, the best teams are not the teams with the best game plan. They're with the best adjustments. That's the same with the NCAA, with the commissions. They need to be the best in adjustments to support these teams, coaches, and players.
Bob Bowlesby, commissioner for the Big 12, Tim, talked on radio, I think yesterday, when he was saying that it's possible that the college football playoffs may be postponed. He doesn't anticipate that playoff games or a championship game will be played in February, but you can't rule anything out at this particular moment in time because of the pandemic. What are your thoughts about that? Do you anticipate a delay? And if so, do you have any issue with it?
I don't anticipate it, but I think I would be okay with it. To me, we change our priorities a little bit this year. This year is, instead of following all the schedules like most of the year, this year is what is best for the players, what is safest for them, and then you get into more different criteria, right, of how can you compete in all those other areas. So if there's a better way to keep them safe and still compete by pushing it a week or two, I'm okay with that. If you think it's better to open up the playoff this year, I'm okay with that too. I would look at a lot of different scenarios, teams that maybe would be on the bubble but didn't get enough games, a Big Ten team, a Pac-12 team. I would be okay with that. Like I said before, I think we need to be open to using wise counsel, a lot of discernment, and a lot of ability to adjust when needed.
Tim, I totally agree with you about adjustments. The perfect is the enemy of the good. Against all odds, they've played as much football as they already have. And we can't expect things to be perfect. If they finish the season, it's a miracle. But they should have had these contingency plans in place. We knew November there'd be a spike. We're up over 120,000 cases a day. But we knew there would be a spike. You would think they would figure out, they would have something in store. What have you heard about the level of preparation in the event that these things happen? Because we knew it was coming.
Well, I think there's some conversations, but I don't think those conversations have gone really deep from what I've heard. So I think they're starting, but I think it's always important to be ahead of the curve, to be ahead of that ball, right? And so I want to encourage the people in charge, the leaders, to let's continue to think ahead. Let's be in front of this, right? Knowing that there could be setbacks in different areas. And so but it's also not just, we can't just work as individual conferences and individual teams. I think if there's a year where we can rally together to come together as a whole to say what is best, let's do that. This is the year. Use your leadership as an example of working together, not just setting your standard apart. I think that would be an awesome learning opportunity for all the students that are watching, and I think it would be a really great example for them to say, you know what, we're going to do what's best. We're going to come together, all different commissioners. Let's get in the same room. Let's figure this thing out. Let's sit and let's work together, and let's kind of put our pride or the mantle of just our conference down, and let's put up what's best for the kids, what's best for the unity of college football together as a whole.
Listen, you're not a doctor, and I'm not asking you to be, and I don't want it to be taken that way. But as a former, Heisman Trophy winning elite athlete on the collegiate level, I ask you this question: when you hear about these guys testing, like Maryland players, 8 different players testing positive and what have you, we all have our thoughts about how you can contract it or whatever. You could be completely innocent or whatever the case may be. What are your thoughts about that in terms of how they may have contracted this? And is there anything at all that you believe football programs in particular could be doing to alleviate some of this?
I think it's a really hard question to answer, Stephen A., because it's different at every school. The protocols are different at every school. I don't know everything about how Maryland's players and their protocols work. I know more about what's the SEC, more about Florida in the different ways, but some have hit, a little bit more, and some have been a little bit more cautious. And so I think it's a balance. I think the one good thing is something that I'm happy for is I haven't heard of any serious cases, which we're still hoping and praying that there are no serious cases with these, these college athletes. And so, like we talked about maybe 2 months ago now, is I still think that they're in the best position being with doctors and in these protocols because they're being cared for every day and they're being monitored. And while there still are some setbacks, I do like that they're around people that know what they're talking about a lot more than me on the medical side. And so I do think that's a good thing. And I think people are really trying to go, at least a lot of schools I talk to, a lot of them are going out of their way to truly try to put the player first, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, talking about setbacks, we know Trevor Lawrence has missed 2 games. A lot of people now putting him maybe aside as far as winning the Heisman. Who would you say is your Heisman frontrunner?
I think number 1 right now would probably be Mac Jones, and that's just a tiny bit over Trevor. I mean a tiny bit. I think Trevor in the next few weeks, next few games, has an absolute shot to win it. I'm just going a tiny bit because Max played a little bit superior against a few better teams and played better competition. But this is still a super close race. I'll also throw Kyle Trask in there from the University of Florida. But I think there's a lot. And when Justin Fields plays more games, I think he's going to be right in the mix. And I think there's a lot of players. I think the Heisman is absolutely up for grabs. I think there are some front runners, but I think this thing is wide open for someone to come and have those Heisman moments down the stretch to really take it, if they have enough games.
Absolutely.
Meantime, DJ Uiagalelei, did I pronounce that right? I think I got it. Uiagalelei,
I don't know about that.
You could see.
Yeah, we're a first name basis, but it's cool. Yeah.
Right. We can see that he can play, but it does highlight a player's value when you get upset, if you call that an upset, I think you can, in your absence, right? So Trevor Lawrence is due to be back next week. What does this mean for Clemson?
Well, I think what does this mean for the playoff picture? How do you look at Clemson with Trevor Lawrence back? Do you look at them as 1, 2, or 3, or 4 like they're ranked right now? I think they're one of the 3 best teams with Trevor. So how does the playoff committee view that? Do they put Notre Dame above with knowing Trevor's healthy? I think that's the biggest question that we're asking ourselves is, yes, Trevor's going to come back and he's going to ball, and they're probably going to get a shot to have another game against Notre Dame and set everything straight, or Notre Dame's going to be able to find a way. I was very impressed with Notre Dame. I think they're a really good team that's really physical, and they play fundamentally sound ball. But what happens when Trevor comes back? That's going to be really easy. But also, how does the committee take this into account? Because this is happening all over the place, where players are going to have to sit out in a lot of key games down the stretch, maybe because it's COVID, maybe because it's injuries. How do they look at that? But that plays into the bigger college football picture for me.
I'll give you another reason that you should look at Clemson and Dabo Sweeney with a raised eyebrow, Tim Tebow. And here it is. Trevor Lawrence being out is one thing. Your defense giving up 47 points is another. I mean, are we going to talk about this defense of the Clemson Tigers? I'd like to hear what your take is on that, Tim Tebow.
Well, I don't think they played their best game by any means, but I think you look at it as a whole and you need to take everything into account. It was a night game. They had several players out injured. It went into overtime, so there's multiple scores in overtime, so that plays into account. So you can't just look at it as a regular game. So I think all those things you take account. Was it a great game plan? No. Was it even a good play by the defense? It was average for them. I think Brent Venables is still one of the best, but you know what? I thought Notre Dame had a great game plan. They made some big plays. They competed to the end. It went in overtime, so that skews the numbers a little bit. They also had injured players. But watch how Clemson bounces back. Listen, we need to remember history, right? Not because it always repeats itself, but because we can learn from it. Learn from it from several years ago with Pitt and Syracuse and all the different games where Syracuse has stumbled a little bit, and then they bounce back. Dabo is one of the best at bouncing back from different games like this where they either win or they lose, but it doesn't look really good. Clemson's going to bounce back, and they're still going to be a really good team. And there's a lot of football left for Clemson this year.
Such a nice guy.
Heck
Such
yeah.
a nice guy.
All right, Tim, keyword here,